Hi, I'm Pam, and I'm here to talk about video games. So today I'm doing a review of a recent game, which is a little bit rare for me, but it's a game that was probably my most anticipated of 2017, and that is Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus is a first-person shooter that was developed by Machine Games and released on October 27, 2017. It takes place after the events of the first game, where the Nazis have won World War II and have now also gained power in America. When the game starts, BJ Blazkowicz is not in good shape. He's very injured from the events of the previous game and starts out in a wheelchair. However, that doesn't stop him from killing Nazis and bringing together a resistance movement. The game does start out very intensely. You get to see a little bit of BJ's past with his parents. His mother is a Polish Jew, and his father is a horrible racist abuser. And I have to give a warning here that if you are like me and get upset by the deaths of animals in games or movies, then sorry, because that happens. Of course, that's not the only thing that happens. There's also a ton of other terrible, terrible things that happen within the game's intro, and it's all a little bit much, but it starts the game off with a bang, for better or for worse. So going to the gameplay and the main loop of the game, it's similar to the first one, that you go, you do a mission, and then you sort of go back to your resistance base, or you see a cinematic, and then that leads you into the next mission. In this game, you have a much larger base, which is a lot of fun to explore. There are lots of people to talk to and conversations to overhear, so you really get to know the people in the resistance with you, and I particularly liked that aspect of the game. As far as the gameplay and the gunplay goes, I really enjoy it. I love the weapons in Wolfenstein. They all feel so different, and all of the different modifications that you can use let you customize things even more to how you want to play with them. So everything from a silenced pistol, which you can use when you're in stealth, to a shotgun, which sends shrapnel ricocheting throughout the room, to flamethrowers, to turret guns, sniper rifles, the laser craftwork from the first game. There's a lot of variety here, and personally I find the guns all feel very good to use. They are very enjoyable to fire. I really like the perk system in this game, and I actually think it's a little bit improved over the last one. Unlike in the New Order, the perks are not gated. Here you get access to all but the final perk in each tree, so that's 15 challenges you can work on at any time. If you get a certain number of dual-wield kills, you get more ammo capacity. If you get stealth takedowns, you'll move faster while crouched. The perks are done in tiers, so for each threshold you hit, you get a bigger bonus. This gives a constant sense of progression and lets you start getting bonuses earlier. Another improvement that I really like in this game is that the Enigma codes that you find are much more useful. You get Enigma codes anytime you kill a commander, and you can take those back to your resistance base and use them in order to find Uber commanders that are stationed throughout the United States. So once you get the location of those, you can sort of do a mission to go right back to that area and kill the Uber commander. And this is good in a couple ways. First of all, it gives you something to do after the game has been finished. So once you're done the game, you can still go back to your base and continue doing missions if you like. And the second thing that does is that for people who are collectibles hunters like me, it lets you go back to those areas and get any collectibles you missed in a fairly easy way. In terms of environments, the game is gorgeous and varied. You go to places like New York City, which has been hit with a nuclear bomb. You visit New Orleans. You visit Mesquite, Texas, and Roswell, New Mexico. At one point, you even go into space. I won't give away where exactly in space you go, but these places are all look very different. There's one point in the game in New Mexico where there are a lot of tunnels to go through, and that does get a little bit old, but in terms of the other areas, especially the outdoor areas, they all look really good and there's a lot of variety to them. Now, the one part of the game where I have some negative things to say is in the difficulty. So you start out, as I said, in a wheelchair. BJ is very, very injured from the last game, and he starts out with only 50 health, which actually lasts much longer than I expected that it would. Having 50 health makes you very vulnerable to enemy fire. There was a lot of times where I felt like I was being two-shot and I was being killed. So while I appreciate that the story and the gameplay mechanics are sort of linked in that way, I think that's very clever, it also made things very difficult. Even later in the game, when you get a bigger health pool, I still found it tough. With the new order, I found Bring 'Em On, the middle difficulty, perfect for me. But when playing on the same setting in New Colossus, I found I was dying much more. One thing I loved about the new order was all the opportunities for stealth. It was very satisfying to sneak down a hallway or into a room and stab an unaware Nazi in the neck. Plus, taking out a few enemies quietly made things easier later on. In the new Colossus, I found stealth much more difficult to maintain, and I think that's because of the level design. The levels are so much bigger, and a lot of them are multi-level. So there's like staircases, there's Nazis on patrol, like looking down stairwells, coming at you from multiple angles, having multiple sight lines toward you. And I found staying hidden was very, very difficult. Now, this may just be a get good kind of thing, but I also felt some dissonance where there was some parts of the game where I felt like I should be so powerful, like BJ should almost feel invincible, and unless I put it like on the lowest difficulty, I never felt that way. I always felt like I was in a lot of danger and there was just never enough health or armor to keep myself alive through some of the waves of enemies. But back to the things that I loved, the game had some wonderful set pieces. One of my favorites involved riding a Panzerhund who breathed fire and setting all the Nazis aflame. That was fantastic. There were some great weapons. The cutscenes and the cinematics were amazing. I often found myself, especially after a particularly difficult level, just like counting down until I got to the end of the level because I knew I would be treated to a wonderful cinematic as soon as I finished it. So I loved the characters in this game. I loved the story in this game. It almost went into the Old Blood kind of area where it was very, very pulpy at times, which I really enjoyed. A number of things happened that was just like, whoa, I can't believe that just happened. That was amazing. So in terms of the story and the characters, I liked this one even more than the first game. One of the things that really appealed to me was that you interacted with and recruited different factions into your resistance, and they came from different backgrounds and different perspectives, and not everyone agreed with everything. So while BJ is very much part of the American war machine, he's a soldier, he wants to fight to protect his family and his friends, he doesn't have the most complex take on the matter. So other people are brought in who do. One of those characters is Grace Walker, and she is part of the Black Revolutionary Front. And while she is just as much into overthrowing the Nazis as BJ is, she also realizes that the American ideals of freedom and equality aren't really true for everyone. Not everyone is as free, and racism and racial violence and inequality were not something that came to America with the Nazis. They were there for a long time. So she sort of brings up those things which someone like BJ might not have thought of as much. There's also a character, Horton Boone, who you recruit, and he is a communist and an anti-capitalist, and he challenges BJ because he believes that war is just something that makes the rich get richer, while at the same time wanting to fight the Nazis just as much as anyone. So it's really nice that we get multiple viewpoints in this game, more so in the first one, where you get all these people coming together, and while they don't agree on everything, they do agree on what they need to do and how they need to start this resistance. So overall, I loved Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. It had a fantastic story and characters. It had some of the most kick-ass power fantasy cinematics that I've seen in a game. I really enjoyed playing it. My only complaint, as I've said, is that I found the difficulty just a little bit too high, and I would have preferred it to be a little easier, I guess. Maybe I'm just feeling bad that I had to knock down the difficulty, but it did feel quite a bit more difficult than the first one. Had it just been a touch easier, a touch less frustrating, I would have totally loved this game and not really had anything bad to say about it. But I definitely recommend, if you are into first-person shooters, if you liked the first game, even if you haven't played the first game, I would recommend you try this out. That's it for now. I hope you liked this review. I thought of them as quick reviews, though it's really that they're quicker to put together. They're actually rather long. But I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you've played the game and what you think about it. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.